Hey folks, geographers, how's it going? Welcome to yet another GIS video. This one is special though, because we're actually going to do something. We're going to produce something that's more than just loading up, a program or something along those lines. You are going to make a map. Some of you, I don't know, maybe you've dabbled with GIS a little bit. You've made maps in other classes or something like that. But let me tell you, if this is your first time, this is important. This is a moment. I still remember the very first map that I ever made with GIS. I think, yeah, it literally was decades ago at this point. But nonetheless, even though it was a long, long time ago, it was big. I still remember it. And it was a simple map of the world. We're actually going to do stuff a little more impressive than what my instructor had me do all those years ago. In part, I think that's because the software has come a long way. It was much more of a task to do some of this stuff. But nonetheless, made this world map, and I was so proud. Thinking back on it, I'm sure it was hideous. I'm sure so many issues, things that today I would look at and just would make me cry in how tacky it was, or poor form, or inaccurate, or all sorts of things. But doesn't matter. It didn't matter to me back then. I did it. I did something. I made something. So keep that in mind. As silly as that might seem, this is big. This is a good moment. At least, maybe for some of you. Maybe other people do this and like, that's it. I'm out of here. And maybe, this isn't your thing. I don't know. I don't know. But for me, I was hooked when I first did that horrendous map of the world. Okay, so get ready. This is going to be good. First thing we're going to do, you'll see I have our program up on the screen. Let me fix this, so I can see what's going on here. So we have the program up on the screen. I want you to create a new map by left-clicking once on that. Okay, create new project name. We are going to call this South_America. All right, simple as that. Remember, no spaces in any of our names that we're able to give, right? So we can either use the underscore, we can do just all one thing. You could do a capital S and a capital A to help distinguish this stuff, but this is the way I'm doing it here, okay? And I'm also making sure I'm saving it in this location, that default ArcGIS folder, in the Documents folder, and specifically in the Projects folder that's within ArcGIS. That's where I want this. I'll hit OK. And it's thinking, saving, creating stuff, voila. This is what I want to see. Okay, once I see this, I'm done with it for now. We're going to move on to Canvas. This is what I want you to go to next. So if you don't already have a window open, logged into Canvas, go ahead and do that. Okay, just pause this if you need to get caught up. But from this home window here, home screen or whatever, I want you to go to Files. And so you see it, it's on the left right here. There'll also be ways, I'm sure, as you work through the modules and the pages, I'll have links to this stuff here and there, but just the direct way to get here is through Files. All right, and then within here, we have this Data folder. Left click on that to get in. And for now, you should see, this. I'd say on my screen, this is the only thing I've uploaded at this point in time. By the time you watch this video, there's a chance that there are multiple data folders in here. Maybe not. I don't know. as I believe I've said before, don't panic if you get to something like this and what you see on your computer doesn't exactly match what's on the video on my screen. It's okay. As long as you see, yes, thank you, OneDrive. As long as you see what we're looking for. In this case, this s_america.gdb.zip. As long as you see that, we're good. Doesn't matter what else is on your screen or not on your screen or whatever. Okay, but this, these are the data files that we're going to be using here. And that .gdb means it's a file geodatabase, which is a way within ArcGIS. It's a way in which this GIS data are stored. Okay, and so that we can actually bring it in and display things and all of that. I believe it's for next week's lecture and lesson. I'm planning on talking about data, and I'll get into file types and a whole host of things. I'll have a very theoretical lecture on this stuff, talking about just how data are stored, how we access that, and so on, as well as how to go find data out on the web. But for now, just know that's what we're getting here. Getting some files that will help us make our South America map. And of course, that's the GDB, but we also have this .zip or .zip. We've dealt with this at this point. All the stuff that's in this geodatabase, it's zipped together, compressed, and that's a way to make it just easy to download. It also makes it so Canvas doesn't freak out. Because if I don't upload this in a zipped format, it panics, it can't handle it, and all that. So that's why it is how it is. Now to access this, you need to come over here to these three dots, left click on them, and I'm sure your options here are a little different. At least I would hope they're a little different. Being the instructor of the course, I can delete this. I don't know if you can delete it. If you can, if it lets you, which seems silly, please don't. But what I'm guessing is that as a student, you're only going to see a few of these options here. As long as you see download, which I know students can see, you're good. So left click on that. And it will just start downloading it as is right here. Okay, so we see in this lower window or bar, whatever we call it here, we've got the file. If I click on that, I can go to show in folder. Okay, take me to where it is, and that's in my downloads folder. Okay, and I've got this, try to streamline some of this stuff so that you're not distracted by other things I've downloaded and all of that. I also recommend, if you're working with this stuff, it's always good, I think, to minimize some of these things, hide these other things, just so you can focus on what you're working with at that moment. All right, so here we have at the top s_America, blah, 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 blah. I right click on there, and this was something that I just posted to Canvas not too long ago that I discovered this might be an issue some of you had when you watched my video about installing ArcGIS on your computer. I was using Windows 10. I was on an older computer that didn't have ArcGIS Pro on it, and I just thought that would make life easier. Clearly, I'm a fool, because 10 does have a very big difference between what it does and what Windows 11 does, and that's when I right-click on this, it hides 7-zip, that program I wanted you to download and install. What you need to do is go to show more options. So one thing Windows 11 is clearly trying to do is to, make it simpler and just show you, just what it thinks you need to know. Probably also a case of anything that's a non-Microsoft product, it kind of puts to the back. So you just use its stuff. Silly me. I don't want to get all conspiratorial, but that's totally why they did it. So if I left click on show more options, this has that more traditional Windows right click look, and sure enough, up here, I've got my 7-zip option. Okay, again, this is if you've watched that video on installing. I ask you to download this, install it. It's a little more robust in terms of extracting things, unzipping things, and all of that. So watch that video. If you haven't done this, make sure you got that so you can follow along. All right. Okay, so 7-zip right here. Got these options. What I want to click on is simply extract files. And I do this because I want to tell it exactly where I want to put the data. Right? I don't want to keep it in downloads. I actually want to put it with my other stuff in that South America project that I just created in ARC, right? In ArcGIS. One thing might be a case if you might have this checked, maybe some stuff here. Just uncheck that for now, if that was checked. But in here, I want to tell it to go to my documents, ArcGIS projects. I could probably type that all out if I wanted to. But what I can also do is just left click on this little guy over here to the right, where we have these 3 dots, this time in a horizontal fashion. And you can start to see a pattern too, hopefully. If you're not totally familiar with either Windows or just computers in general and all this stuff, like look for those patterns. There are some conventions. Clearly, the 3 dots in either direction kind of means like, hey, let's do something more. There's a little more we can do. Here's some options you're not seeing, or something along those lines, right? So we click on that, and in here I can go. If I just open up my name, I can go to Documents, ArcGIS, Projects, right? And I created. Let's see if it's actually in here. Haha, South America. I want to save it in here. Okay, and one thing to point out, I don't think I mentioned this yet, but when I created that South America map in ArcGIS initially, it went ahead and made this file geodatabase for me to work in, to store things in, and all that. There's nothing actually in there presently because I haven't done anything with the map or with data in there or any actual work, right? But I made sure, and I'll try to do this to make life easier for you, but I made sure that when I was creating this geodatabase, I named it something that would make sense, but it wasn't identical to what I figured we would name our project, right? Because if I'm trying to put this geodatabase in here and it's already got one with the same name, it's going to get confused. It's going to be a mess. Maybe it'll put like a little parentheses 1 on the end, but then, that gets confusing. So that's why I named this, and this is this, and all that. Hopefully that'll make sense. Hopefully we won't get confused. I'm making this up as I go. We'll see how this works. So, okay, we'll do that. So it's going to save it there. Everything else I can leave. Again, uncheck this if this was checked when you open it up. And then I'm going to hit OK. And it does things. And then nothing. Nothing at all, all right? The good news is I didn't get an error. So that's good. I got that going for me. But what I can do is now just go over here. So I've got this little display here on the side. I can go into Documents, ArcGIS, double click on that, go into Projects, double click on that, go down here to my South America, double click there, and look at that. Oh, gorgeous. I have both. That default one that it produced, and then the thing I downloaded. And if you try to double click in here and go in here, you're going to see something like this. And I'll talk about more of this stuff when we get into data. When I give the data lecture and get into the actual files themselves, the format in which the stuff is stored and brought into to ArcGIS and all that. But what you'll see with a lot of these is when you start clicking into it, just in the general Windows File Explorer, you're going to see stuff that makes no sense. It's gibberish and it's a lot of stuff and it can be weird and confusing and terrifying. That's okay, right? So don't worry about that. Just wanted to make sure that this is in the main folder. We're going to work with all of this through ArcGIS itself. And it knows how to read this and how to make sense of it. Okay, so in fact, since we got this here, I'm just going to go ahead and close that. I'm going to go back here to ArcGIS Pro. All right, now let's look. If you don't have catalog, this pane, I believe that's the terminology that they want us to use here. So this pane on the, most likely the right of your screen, if you don't see catalog, not a problem. Okay, we can bring it up. Go to View and just Catalog Pane. Okay, and that'll bring that over here if you click on that. I have this stuff up, a handful of things, because I've been playing around with stuff. It seems to just kind of leave what you were last working with on there. I can also close these things just to, in fact, show you if you've got something that looks just like this, none of the panes over here. Well, then I can just do Catalog Pane. Look at that, huh? Phenomenal. Okay, so that's how that works. Another thing too, just while I'm here, just to show you, this used to happen in the desktop version. I haven't done enough with ArcGIS Pro in an actual classroom. Something that isn't virtual, either COVID-wise or just because it's an online class or whatever. But I used to have students in the old version, at least one or two would in the first few weeks delete this contents pane and lose their stuff, and they would panic. Right? They would do this, and it was a major crisis. Again, if you're missing anything here that you're used to seeing, view, hit contents, it's right back. All right? Nothing you click on or X out of. That's one good thing about ArcGIS, is that it won't totally destroy something, or it will give you a bunch of warnings before you totally destroy something. All right? So don't panic in here. All right, but we have catalog. Beautiful. We've got these options like this map. It's referencing what we've got here. We look at databases, and we just have our self_America.gdb. Now, in some cases, and if I open this too, there's nothing in there. Now, a few issues here. One problem that ArcGIS has is that it doesn't automatically refresh any of this stuff. So if I create anything outside of ArcGIS, even sometimes inside of ArcGIS, it doesn't know to go look and see if there's new stuff. So I can do something, it exists, but this program can't actually see it, if that makes sense. So one thing we can do, if ever we know we did something, we can't see it, when in doubt, right click on the place itself. There should be this refresh option. I left click on that. You'll go through and look. Okay. Here's an issue though. I think the thing is, I haven't looked into this enough to fully 100% know the answer, but it's a case where I think it doesn't acknowledge that there's another geodatabase in here or something like that. Instead, if I go into folders, let me refresh that. Oh, it didn't even do that one. Oh, there it is. Okay, that's the initial folder. Good. All right. Yeah, so this is that main folder in projects. But now we can see we've got that original default self_America, and then we've got our s_America.gdb. That's our guy. That has our stuff. And you can see in here countries, disputed boundaries, lat_long_carto. I'll explain what these are, but these are different feature classes. And I'll get into that terminology specifically in the data week when I talk about all that stuff. But it's data, right? These are layers of the map. So you can envision this, right? Country boundaries, cities, that SA, South America, right? Lakes, rivers. So these separate individual elements of reality itself. And that's what we've got in here. And we can do a few things. We can, I believe, just click and drag like that. I always say I believe with this stuff. A lot of the things I do, it's by kind of instinct. with how I do it. There also, you find within ArcGIS, it's a case where there are, 3 or 4 ways to do the same thing. And we get into a habit. I have a way I like to do things, like bringing data into the map itself. Other people think, oh, that's a terrible way. I'm going to do it this way. All right, you'll learn that. You'll pick up on what you like, what you don't like. But we can click and drag this stuff. Let me right click here. I'm going to remove it. And so here's a key thing. And so and I realized I went fast there. I just right clicked on countries over here in our contents pane, because you see it drew it on the map itself, but it also shows up here. All right. If I right click on here and hit remove, what I'm doing, it's not delete. Right? It's not going to get rid of it. It's not going to disappear. It's just saying, hey, take this off of this map. All right? It still exists. So I hit remove. It's gone from here. It still exists on the computer. We can see it over here. All right? So that's, like, again, it's a case where you're not going to destroy anything. Don't worry about it. And of course, worst case scenario, if something goes horribly wrong, you always have this file on Canvas. You can download it again, unzip it again, and start over. But really, it's pretty hard to really screw this up. And I say that, but also I've had plenty of students who have really screwed it up, and I haven't been able to figure it out. Bless their hearts. They're just good at breaking computers or whatever. But it wasn't even that bad. It was just, in some cases, it was like, sorry, this last 30 minutes of work is shot. Let's go back, reload this thing, start over. Right? Even then, they weren't totally. No, I've never seen a laptop just burst into flames based on some buttons clicking in ArcGIS. All right. So that's that. Let's see. Pull that out. Let me see. Yeah, see, it won't let me. Here, I can never remember exactly. I was thinking if we do the whole thing, but it doesn't let you do that. But what if we. Yeah, we can do just that was. So I clicked. Sorry. Left clicked on countries up at the top. Okay. Hit shift and then left click rivers at the bottom. And it grabs all of these. And then I can just click and drag. I'm clicking, holding, right? Holding down the left click, dragging, bring it over here, and it adds all of these things. Okay? So that's a way to do this. And one thing, maybe you noticed, let me uncheck some of these because there's a lot on here. And so that this doesn't even remove the things, it just turns them off so I can't see them presently. Right? But you see countries, I believe it was pink. First time I brought it in, now it's this green color. It's always Esri. They love these pastels, these awful pastels. So there's not, and this said too, if you drag yours in and it's a totally different color, it's a random thing that it's picking. We're not going to keep anything in these colors anyway. I'm going to show you how to make them actually attractive and not in this kind of sickly look here. So we'll learn how to deal with that. But I just wanted to point that out. The colors that come in, the symbology that comes in, it's just a random thing. And they pick these different colors just so, in many cases, stuff will stand out, be separate from the other layers. Okay, so that's that. Now let me also to show you. I'm gonna remove these again, and you don't have to do all these ways, but you can. And this, shoot, I'm sorry, I'm playing around, forgetting there are people listening and watching. I just left click once on cities at the top, went down to countries, shift, left click, right? I hit right click anywhere in here, remove, and they're all gone. And I do that just because I want to show you another way to bring this stuff in. If I go back to map, here, this map ribbon, I have add data. And a few different options, don't worry about it. Some of the stuff we might use, a lot of it we won't, at least not in this class. But just this first one, add data to the map. So it brings this up. And see, this is nice. It brings it all the way, for me anyway. Again, I'm not sure exactly what you're going to see, if it's going to be the same thing, but it brought me to this, the exact same spot that I've been working. And so I can do that shift and click trick thing right here, and I can hit OK and add them this way. If it didn't bring you all the way here, well, what you could do is say, in project, It's got folders. It's showing you kind of that same stuff here. All right. And this is why it's nice to work in this projects folder and keep everything in here, is because that's the place where it's going to be the easiest to find stuff. The program is going to look there first in many cases, or default to saving it in this place in many cases. It just makes life easier. I could have saved this S_America geodatabase anywhere on my computer, but if I save it outside of this project, it just means I got to work harder to go find it. Whether I keep it in the downloads thing, on the desktop, in some weird cloud-based, OneDrive, Dropbox, Google Drive, something like that. I mean, I can put it anywhere, but this just makes life easier. So again, within here, if I just go into that one, I can left click, shift, left click in there, hit OK. Hit OK, there we go. And it brings that stuff in again. Okay, and we'll turn off a few of these so we can see some of this stuff. Okay, so that's bringing the data in. And for the most part, we'll work this way. I want you to learn how to do this stuff from scratch effectively. In some classes, you can download the actual map project itself initially. Maybe I'll give you that. For some instances, maybe during some tests, I'll do that just to control a little more, to kind of set some stuff up for you in that way. But one problem I have is that, and why I've spent so much time already on just basics in here, is because it's really important for students to know how to work from nothing. All right, how to just open up a new map here and start doing stuff, right? Rather than have the professor give you all this stuff and you just, click some buttons and that's it. I found that with students in later classes, I can definitely tell the ones who learned GIS, not really to anything, but with GIS, it's really obvious, who learned it, how to really work with it and get their hands dirty and all that, and who had everything handed to them, bless the instructor's hearts, they were trying to help make life easier, but you're not actually learning, right? If you don't get at this from the bottom, like we're trying to do. So that's the point of this. Okay. Let's see. I'm gonna go ahead. Yeah, this will work. I'm gonna close catalog just so we can see in here, and you can reposition if you want or whatever. But I'm just gonna point out some things and do so in a way where we can actually see what's happening with the map and the data and all that. Now, first thing I'm going to do, because I've added stuff in, I'm going to get rid of these base maps, this default stuff. Okay? It might be tempting to keep the ocean stuff out here, because if I turn this stuff off, I don't have any of that in here. In fact, I tell you what. Yeah, I tell you what. Here's what we'll do. Making this up as I go. Go ahead and just uncheck these. You can leave them in here, geographers. You don't have to remove this stuff yet, but uncheck it so that we don't see it. Because I want you to be used to working without the aid of these base maps. Let's make something we're proud of that wasn't already made for us. You dig? That's the goal. So we'll turn that off, and then let's zoom into South America. Okay, so doing the trick I showed you in one of these videos, if I left click and hit shift an area, and I'm going to do it over in the northwestern end of South America, or upper left, if you don't want to get too geographic. And I'm just going to drag. I'm still holding the left click and the shift buttons, but I'm dragging to the opposite end, and then I let go, and it zooms into exactly where I want to be. Okay? So there you go. Look at us. We are big time. And what I'm going to do, because this is good habit, because I've actually accomplished things here, is I'm going to hit save. All right, so we have a few ways. You can do Control S. You can also just come up here to this icon that has, it's the little floppy disk. I don't know if anybody even knows what that thing is, but that's how we used to save things, these tiny little plastic discs there. So that's the save icon, even though it's this artifact from a past era. But just left click on that, it'll save. Okay, other options, if you go into project, right, and you can hit say it's grayed out because I've already done it. You can do that in there, a bunch of different ways to access this. Okay, and to get back, I just hit this back arrow. All right, but I want to save often in here because stuff happens. I mean, this is supposed to be more stable than past versions, but stuff happens, and you don't want to risk it. You don't want to be working. You've invested, right? 2 hours of work, and you're almost there. You're almost to the end, and the whole thing crashes, and you realize you haven't saved for that entire 2 hours. You're out of luck. There's no way to recover that. There's no way to go back. You've got to do it again. So get in that habit. For me, it's instinctual at this point. I don't even know what I'm doing. I just go up, hit save, keep working. Hit save, keep working. You can't save too much. And the nice thing is, if you do that, you're working, it crashes, cool. You lost 2 minutes or something along those lines, right? Also, if you do something, and you go, wait a second, that didn't work. That doesn't make sense. I don't like this at all. If you really start to panic in that way and you don't know how to get out of whatever or fix something, in many cases you can simply close it, don't save, open it up again, and it'll go back to that last save point, which hopefully was right before you did that thing that got all screwed up, if that makes sense. So always save, often, as much as you can. Think about that. Turn that into a habit. Okay? All right. So now let's talk about the data that are in here. Okay, so I have what I've given you here. And I'll do this. I'll provide, in many cases, I'll provide data. And just to explain what we have, I have all of the countries of the world. And I did that. I didn't just do South America, even though that's what our map is going to be focused on here. But it always looks weird. If, say, we don't have, Central America leading into North America, depending on the actual extent of our map, or Antarctica, or in some cases, maybe Western Africa, or whatever. It's weird to have these things just floating in isolation. So I kept the countries. I also kept, and I'm going to click and drag. That's just left clicking and dragging. I think I mentioned this before. But if you do that, it's going to change the drawing order, right? So it's the idea that the thing on the bottom gets drawn first, then the thing above that, then the thing above that. So it draws in order, right? So if I have, let's do something obvious, the South American cities, if I clicked and dragged that underneath countries, they're going to disappear, with the exception of some of these on the coast and these little island ones that still pop out, right? So just always think about that. Your drawing order, that kind of stuff. And to change any of this, it's left click, hold, and drag. Okay? And it's also a case up here, if you kind of cycle through some of this stuff, some of it will be relevant in this class, some of it we're not even going to touch on. But these are just kind of different ways to view in the contents pane. All right? If you want to be able to drag this stuff, you need to be in this drawing order window or option or whatever we tab. I don't know what we call it. All right, and here, this data source, if I try to click and drag, it's not going to let me because that's not what this is all about. This is telling me where this stuff exists. All right, so another little tip and something to help you if you inevitably get confused or something isn't working. All right, so disputed boundaries. I just included this because I like having this, but it's a case where we don't, we say we have a boundary that exists, but there's some questions about, in many cases, it's one country recognizes this boundary, another country recognizes this boundary. You can see some stuff up here. You can leave this on or not if you want. In fact, I'm going to let's go up here and look. This will be a good explanation. I'll get even a little closer. Okay, now what I can do with anything, when I've got my little pointing finger cursor here, is if I just left click on something, it brings up this identify window. Okay? It can be kind of a pain because I sometimes forget it and I click and it freaks me out. But this is nice. All right, so it's showing this right here, and it highlights in this blue, and then it goes kind of red, but it's showing you what it is. It's Guyana. All right, if we click over here, we've got Venezuela. And then if we look at these disputed boundaries, right, so I've got, we do this, right, so there's Guyana, just kind of as is, the generally accepted international boundaries, but then these disputed ones, if I click on there, it says Venezuela's claim line. I think if I move this over, right, Suriname also has a claim line. So you can see there's an issue with who says, who gets what and where these boundaries actually are. In some cases, this is important for what you're mapping. In other cases, not. Now, our goal here, so I don't think I've been clear with this thus far, is we're just going to make a general reference map of South America. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to uncheck that, and I'm not going to draw in these disputed boundaries. So I don't think it's necessary for this map I'm doing. Now, if I'm showing something in here, specifically if I'm making a map of this part of South America, and it's some kind of geopolitical issue that I'm trying to map or something where these disputed boundaries are important, then absolutely, I'm going to put them in. I'm going to label stuff. I might have some text in the side of my map or something to kind of explain why Venezuela makes this claim and, what the issues are and all of that. But for this map, I'm just going to show something. So I'm not going to worry about it. Okay? But I do throw this in here. And just this whole world countries thing, not just for this project, but, just so you have it. You have this stuff at your disposal. Go ahead and use it for other projects. Play around with it. When you're done with this, go to some other part of the world. See, where these countries are and so on. And I'll try to give you more data sets and show you where to get some of these data sets and all that in the future. All right, we'll get to that at some point here. But that's what this one is. South American lakes, pretty straightforward. Same thing with rivers, right? So just wanted to give you some natural features in here. The cities, again, pretty straightforward. The one thing that maybe isn't totally obvious is this lat_long carto. If I turn it in, it's overwhelming, but these are latitude and longitude lines, for the world. Okay? Again, gave you something for everything here. But we can make this more manageable. Okay? And that's what we're going to do first. The first thing to do with all of first thing to do, I'm going to hit save, right? Because that's what I do, because I'm a pro. But then the second thing we're going to do is we're going to, let's right click on lat long carto. And so that carto, that's my own thing. It's short for cartography. I made this specific layer off of one that Esri provides. It's an all-around, it's a very useful layer to have, but I always wind up having to tweak it in ways, depending on whatever kind of map project I'm working on. So I tried to make one that's simple, gets that stuff taken care of right off the bat, and I'm providing that to you. And I'm going to show you how we can work with this thing. And we'll use this a lot. I'm a big fan, big proponent of including latitude and longitude on maps because I think it is relevant, number one. I know I work with historians a lot. I make maps for them, different projects, and they don't like it. That's not their thing. They don't, maybe the equator, but that's it. I think they're foolish and mistaken. Bless their hearts. But that's just it. But I'm gonna give you my views on this stuff and show you how to use this. And as geographers, it's a useful thing to have. Okay. So let's see. First thing I want to do after I've right-clicked is I want you to select Attribute Table. Okay, now this is a key concept within GIS, the attribute table. Here's the deal. This is what makes GIS so powerful, so wonderful, so amazing. It's that all of these different shapes and things I'm seeing on the map itself. In this case, these latitude and longitude lines in here, yeah, they're the lines. They're these vector products here that, cover a certain area and all of that. Sure. But every single one of these lines is connected to one entry in this attribute table. So this is connected to, in this case, lat, long, carto. And the attribute table has all sorts of data that connect to that specific line. All right, let's see, in fact, so this value 0, in fact, I don't know, let's see. Let me see if that is the equator. Yes, okay, so that's 0 latitude. All right, that's our equator. So you can see, oh, actually it's both of them. Oh, yeah. Oh, maybe that'll be okay for what we're doing. Maybe not. Well, it'll work. I just put this thing together, but now I'm seeing an issue with my logic here. Because we have, it's 0 degrees latitude is the equator, 0 degrees longitude, it's the prime meridian. Look, for what we're doing right now, don't worry about it. I'll get dirty about this later on. All right, but what you can see is these two lines, in this case, right here, are connected to this stuff. And some of this might not make sense right off the bat, so let me show you how to read it. We have value is 0 degrees, right? This value here, well, we won't see it. Let's do 100 west. There we go. So this is 100 degrees west longitude. Right, and I know it's longitude because longitude is east, west, right? Latitude is north, south, and so on. That's how all this stuff operates, right? So that's the value. Then this degree 5, degree 10, degree 15, it's got this binary, it's a yes, no kind of thing. We're going to use this in a minute. But so it says yes. Every, if we're doing every 5th degree, yes, this one would work. All right, every 10th degree, yes, this one would work. Every 15th degree, no, it wouldn't work, right? And so we continue on here, 20, 30, and then label, this is something I put on because I don't like that they put the east and the west in here. I'll do that later if I need to, but I like just the number. We'll play with that at a certain point, right? But that's it. And this length, it's just telling you how long in the specific units this item is. Not really important for what we're doing here, okay? But everything here is connected to that. In fact, let's close that. Oh, and if it's still selected, so up here from the map window, this is one way to get to it, but this little guy here, clear, he gets rid of that turquoise blue highlighted selected thing. We always want to clear that unless we're deliberately working with a selected feature, and we'll see why when we get to that kind of stuff. But just to show, let me turn that off. Let's go to countries, right-click, attribute table. Same kind of deal. All right, and in this case, it's all around the world. So we start with Afghanistan and Albania and all that. But that's how, when I clicked up here on Venezuela or wherever, it pulled that up. Right? It said, this is Venezuela. I mean, we might not think of it, but that's pretty remarkable that we can do that. You can't do that on like a JPEG of a map of the world or something like that, or a PDF necessarily, or those kinds of things. But in GIS, what makes it so cool is that we have all the data connected to the shape, right? That's what this attribute concept is. All right, so let's see how we can use this. If we go back, in fact, I'll turn this back on, this massive stuff, we're going to go to, right click, instead of attribute table, come down here to properties. All right, so that opens this up, and we have a lot of different options in here. We'll work with some of these, at different times. But what I want to do for now is this definition query. So left click on that. And if I go ahead and hit new definition query. And so what this is, we're going to speak in computer speak. The good news is we don't have to type everything from scratch. The program itself will provide us with some of the information, so it's not horrible. But what we need to do is we need to think like computers, speak like computers, and that way we can tell this computer, hey, I don't want you to show everything, right? In this case, I don't want to see every line of latitude and longitude. No. I just want some of them, okay? And that's what the query is. I say, I want you, listen, computer, are you listening? I want you, computer, to only draw the lines that are like this, right? And I say what this is. In fact, I think what we'll do, we'll start out with just the 30 degree interval thing. So we'll say, computer, just draw the ones that fit this 30 degree interval kind of thing. The problem is, I can talk that way, but you probably all tried to talk to whatever, Alexa, Siri, Cortana, all these different assistants. And you've had that, right? Where you speak to them and it doesn't quite work. You get that. It's supposed to be amazing. The commercials and things you see make it look amazing, and you ask them a question, they're like, I'm sorry, I don't know. Here's a web search, and it's useless, right? That's the issue is we can't just talk to computers the same way we would talk to each other. We're getting closer to it, but when it comes to GIS, we ain't there, all right? So what we need to do, think in computer speak, query one, we're going to say where, select a field. Okay, so in this case, degree 30, we have, is equal to, not equal to, all these options. We're just going to say is equal to, that works. And then I hit this drop down. I want it to be yes, right? So we're saying, hey computer, right, I want you to draw the lines where in this field, degree 30, it's equal to yes. Right, that's the computer thing that we've got. And I'm going to hit apply. Okay, and it hasn't given me any errors or anything like that. This one's pretty straightforward. And then I'm going to hit OK. And look at that. It severely limits what's there. Right, makes it a lot easier to read. And this is great. And it's a case where, again, we're thinking about the purpose of this map. We're not making this map so that you can, backpack across the Amazon and you're going to need the latitude and longitude lines or any other kind of grid thing on here. It's just a nice reference that we have. All right, so that's how we can do that. And the good news is too, if I right click in here and go to properties, and let's say I changed my mind. I'm like, I don't like that. I'm going to go to the 15 or the 20 or something like that. I can just go in, hit edit, right? I can also just get rid of it, whatever. Bunch of different options. But the data are still there. They still exist. It's just hiding this stuff. So I don't have to worry about it. All right, I'll hit cancel because I don't need to do anything there. I'm going to hit save. So I just did something. And the other thing I'm going to do, this thing I think looks kind of slick, I'm going to left click and drag. Oh, hold on, I held too long. Left click and drag this all the way to the bottom. All right, so it just shows latitude and longitude lines out in the ocean, but it doesn't show them in the countries themselves. Okay, I think that's a good look. All right, again, because I'm not using this for navigation, it's just a general reference. I want to know where the equator is, right? And some of these other values are. And feel free, as you're making your map, I'm showing you how to do this stuff. If I show something and you're like, yeah, I don't like that. I want to try that with the 15. I want a few more lines in there, right? Or maybe I put too many lines. You're like, yeah, I don't like that. I want to do less or whatever. Feel free to experiment. You're always free. Unless I say, absolutely, you cannot do X, Y, or Z. Pay attention to that stuff. There's a reason for that. But if it's just like, I'm going to do the color blue, and you think, I don't want blue, I want the color green, have at it. Have some of your own creativity in here. I'll never dock you points for you just, playing around, unless I've specifically said, don't play around, do this a certain way. You follow? Okay. All right, so there's that. Okay, a few more things in here that we're going to do. So I turned off this whole world topographic map thing. I mean, yeah, it looks cool because we've got not just water, but the different colors and all that. We've got labels, but still, we're not going to do this. There are ways to do this. Maybe we'll get into in this class. Maybe it'll be more advanced classes where you get to play around with some of this stuff. But we're not going to use it. We're not going to rely on this crutch. For now, what we can do, so that we don't have this white, kind of harsh background, we're going to right-click up here where it says Map. We're going to go into Properties. Okay, and I'm going to do two things in here. Number one, I'm going to rename this. Just because I don't really need to. This is the only map frame I'm putting together here. But still, it's a good habit to get into, to not just have these generic map names, but actually say what it is. All right, so leave that there. Leave this other stuff here for now. Background color, though, what I can do is I can hit that little drop down, and I've got all of these options. All right, and so I can pick, and you can see, some of the names are fantastic. Blue-gray dust, and you can get up here, big sky blue, just different versions of blue that we can play around with. If you don't like any of these colors, you can go into color properties, mess around with stuff. I'm most likely, I don't think in this class I'll be talking to you guys about the different color models and all of this stuff. But if you know what you're doing with any of these things, or even if you don't know what you're doing at all, but you just want to kind of play, I don't know what I'm doing, but I can slide things, and you can experiment with stuff in here, right? Or what you can do, again, not necessarily knowing what you're doing, but you pick one of these colors, go to color properties, it sets it there, right? And you can see, in this, that's a transparency. Hold on, let's do that later. But some of these, like the value, I can slide that. Say, I like that a little darker. Ooh, but then if I do, that looks cool, play around. Don't ever feel like you have to stick with these default things. But I'm just going to, for now, let's do this one. It's a little dark. That's kind of cool, right? Because what I can do, pick that blue. And don't worry about it. If you didn't pick that blue, pick whatever you want. You don't even have to do blue, all right? But what I can do is down with these Cardo lines in here, because they don't really stand out in here. So I can do a few things. So what I'm just going to do is left click on the actual line, right? It says click to modify symbol. You saw that. That's an easy way to get at this. It's what historically they call it, like the swatch, I think, at the bottom. If you click on any of these, you can get into these options to change stuff. And you see now I have a new pane that shows up, the symbology pane. Right? And so it gives me some default things. Some might work, some maybe not, like the railroad thing. You really only want to use that if you're working with railroads, right? So there's that. Also, and I would encourage you, definitely look through this stuff. Sometimes it's useful, but I would encourage you not to use these default things. Instead, go into properties, and you can play around here. This is color. That's simply what we're dealing with. You see the similar window pop up, these options, also the eyedropper tool, if you want to take it from something else to match something perfectly. But what we can do, just use white. All right, let's try that. Apply that. Oh, look, that's looking pretty slick, right? That looks like a real gosh darn map. So we can do that if we want. The width, one is pretty good. You experiment with this stuff, but typically, unless there's a reason, when you start to get, these thick weights, that can be a bit much. That kind of stands out a little too much, I think, anyway. So I'll keep it with one. So I could do that white. Have some kind of contrasting thing, but it's still kind of pleasant and in the background. Maybe I do like a lighter gray. See that looks pretty slick. I can also do what's also a good trick. Messing with this is play with the hue you're working in. Let's see if this works. So I've got blue and blue, but they're different, types of blue in here, right? For lack of a better vocabulary at the moment. So, that's a nice way to do this stuff. So, play around with this stuff. Definitely play around with the colors. That's one thing I want to see you do. And again, to get to that, I simply went in here, left-clicked on the actual line itself, played around with that in here, and when I was ready, I hit apply. And feel free, you can play around, you can click. There are all sorts of little windows and sub-menus and things like that. You can look through here if you want. If something doesn't look, right, or you start clicking on the stuff and it just gets horrendous, you can always do this undo stuff, which typically works with these things. Also, if it's really bad, you just remove it, add it in again, start over. All right, I'm not going to talk about all this stuff in here in this video, even in this class, but always experiment, play around with this stuff. It's fun to do. All right, and so there's that. We can also go into countries. All right, playing around with this stuff. Same kind of deal. Gives you some defaults. You can go into properties. Okay, it looks a little different here because it's a polygon. Okay, so it's an enclosed shape, not a line, but it's the same kind of idea. So over here in this little paintbrush symbol thing, I can pick a color. Now the default kind of traditional stuff. What is that color? What is that? Apple dust. I mean, we could do that green, but default is kind of like a tan for land, blue for water. Pretty standard kind of convention in there. You're welcome to do that, whether it's this type of tan or some kind of lighter thing in there. It's a pretty generic looking map, and I say generic not like as an insult, but just that's what people do. That's a safe way to do this stuff. Typically, what we don't want to do, like I wouldn't want to use blue for the land. I could do this if I was going for an effect, but typically we don't want to do that because it just can kind of be confusing. We tend to think blue is water, right? But again, experiment. One thing we could do, let me just do this. In fact, I'll do that. And I'm going to get kind of a darker brown here, okay, for the boundaries themselves. I'm not just going to default to the gray or the black that these things give me. Then, what if I go back up here and I go into properties and the background color, what I'm going to do is maybe I do like a gray. Let's try that, right? To go for more of kind of an old-timey thing. And I can change this to like either a gray in there. I could do kind of a brown vibe back there. Go for some kind of old-timey, sepia-looking map. All right, have at it. Play with this stuff. Go for something that you are proud of. Keep playing around with it. Be deliberate with these things. Don't stick with the defaults that we have. Okay, and I'll stick with this for now. I'm going to hit save because I'm liking what I'm seeing. Okay, and now two other things I want to show you, and then I'll get into the layout component. Then we'll get into how to export this and what to do. Okay, but the two other things I want to talk about, I'm just going to do it with cities here, is that with these cities, I've got a lot of them. Much like that whole latitude and longitude thing, I think I got more cities than I actually want to see, to look at. Here, let me kind of, zoom out a little bit. And I included some cities that go up in, let's say, Central America. Again, just for wherever you have your thing cropped, so you can see some of these things. And if I look at the attribute table, yeah, we can see all sorts of information. The city name, different, administrative stuff, provincial stuff, the country in which it's in, status, right? Provincial capital, meaning like we in the U.S. would call it a state capital, right? Or national capital would be, so in this case, provincial capital would be like Sacramento for California, right? National capital would be like Washington, D.C. for the U.S. We don't really have that national and provincial. We don't have, because D.C. isn't a state and that whole issue there. But that's what these are showing. And then population, we have some numbers in there. Pop rank, pop class, it's where we try to lump things together, right? Instead of having an exact number, we put it in, it's over 500,000, less than 1 million people, which gets it this pop rank of 3. Okay, null, here, this is worth pointing out. Whenever you see the little brackets and null, that means there's no data, okay? It doesn't mean nothing or 0, right? Because that would actually be data. It just means we don't know. We don't have the information in here for whatever reason, right? So that's something worth remembering. We'll work with that, but there's a big difference between null and 0 that will become important when we start to work with data like this. We start to ask questions and analyze things, manipulate things, and all of that. So in some cases, it's not a perfect thing. Paraguay, for whatever reason, we don't have that. Same thing, Peru's missing some stuff. So some of these we just don't have the data, but we got a good amount of stuff. We can use these here, again, like with the lat long, to limit the cities that we have. So I right click, go to properties, new definition query, okay, where, I don't know, what do I want to do? I could do status, right? I could do status is equal to national capital, and just do that. All right, and let's hit OK. Well, that's interesting. That got rid of a lot of them. I mean, I know, Chile, Peru, these places, they have national capitals as well. Why aren't they there? Aren't they showing up? Oh ho! If I go back in here, remember, some of them were national and provincial, like Brasilia was an example of that. So based on this, let's edit, Brasilia, the capital of Brazil, it's not showing up. It's not actually displaying because it's not just the national capital, it was the national and provincial capital. The computer is stupid. It doesn't know, and I say that I'm not insulting the computer, I'm saying it doesn't know what I mean, or that, Brasilia should be lumped in here, whatever. It's stupid in the fact that it's completely literal. Okay? It's not just the national capital, it's the national and provincial capital. So what I can do this add clause. All right? And so I go from here. Okay, so I've got this, and there's and then select a field. If I hit this drop down, it's and it's or. Okay, 2 important things, and we need to think logically. So if I do, let's just leave it at and I'll say status is equal to, because I also want national, say, and provincial in here, I'm going to get no results whatsoever. And that's because there isn't a single one of these city entities that is both national capital, period, and national capital and provincial capital, right? Instead, what we want here is we want to switch this to or, because we're saying, hey, computer, pick a city where it's like this, just national capital, or also pick if you see national capital and provincial capital, right? And I can also, or, there's a third one in here, is equal to, leave that, national capital and capital enclave. All right, and I'll hit apply, and I'll hit OK, and now we have a lot more cities, right, that show up here, because each of these will meet one of the criteria that we set to that multi-criteria thing that we've got, right? So like Brasilia shows up, and some of these other Lima shows up, and all of that. Okay, hopefully you followed that. So that's a way to limit these. I also could have done it by population numbers. I mean, a whole host of things I could have done. I just thought this would work. All right, now another thing we need to do is, I mean, this is all well and good. I know some of these cities. I am a geographer after all. Let me zoom in, but I'll be honest with you, I'm not that kind of geographer, so I don't remember these capitals of countries and all that stuff. So what would be nice? Let's put some labels in here, right? Let's label some of this stuff. So if I go to cities, I right-click, and I have label, and labeling properties, as well as convert labels. This is something we'll mess with down the road. Okay, but label, if I just click that, boom, look, it shows all that stuff. Oh, right, La Paz, that's Bolivia. Okay, that makes sense. Okay, I've got these different names in here. Some of this still a little too convoluted up there. We're not going to worry about that at the moment. Okay, but in here, it throws us on there. In this case, it works. It's the names I wanted. But sometimes you do this, again, where you just right-click and hit label, and it doesn't quite work. It's pulling from some other value, something like that. So in that case, whether the labels themselves are wrong or just not what you want, or you want to change something, you want to go into labeling properties. Yet another pane pops up. We're not going to worry about this stuff. This gets a little wacky. In fact, I'm frustrated. I think they made this overly complicated in ArcGIS Pro. But we'll get into how to play around with some of this stuff later on in a future, video or whenever. I don't know. We'll figure it out. We can leave this for now, but it's a case where this is simply saying, what you're going to actually put as a label. It's the city name field, right? If I didn't like it, I could get rid of that, and I could go down. Maybe I wanted the admin name. I double click that. I hit apply. And it changes stuff for the most part. The admin, clearly it's the same for Lima, La Paz, and all that. Or whatever. Any of these things. I can pick any of these things, and it will connect it to the points. All right. And so this is a case like country name. Yeah, that's true. I don't want to do that. What I would do later on, say if I'm making a map to turn in for a class, hint, hint, is I would do the same thing down in countries. Make sure the countries' names are labeled. All right, but up here, again, it was fine to start with. I was just trying to show you how to do this, but, have this here. Okay, now a few different, don't worry so much about all this. The labels can get really interesting in what we're doing here. But just go to symbol and appearance. This is the primary thing you're going to work on so far in these first few weeks. Okay, thing number one, I don't ever want to see 10-point Tahoma font on any of your maps. Okay, I tell you what, there's nothing wrong inherently with Tahoma at 10 points and all of that, but it's the default. It's what ArcGIS defaults to. We're better than that. Okay, I want you to strive. With every map you make, please try to make it look like it didn't come from ArcGIS, right? Don't be happy with these defaults. So instead, click the drop down. Whatever's already loaded on your computer, you have access to. Yours might look different from mine. I've got stuff I've loaded on for a variety of different projects and stuff like that. But find something that isn't Tahoma, but that you're happy with. Okay, just something that'll be cool, and you can apply it and see. That looks a little slick. That looks kind of pro. Check that out. All right, and you can go through here again. Doesn't matter what you're gonna do. One convention, just so you're aware, what we tend to do is we use what's called sans serif font, like this one here, for cultural features, like cities, okay? People stuff. We do this kind of font. So that's like, this one, Arial, Tahoma would technically work, as well in this field. Draw. So any of these where it doesn't have the little extra flourishes, all right? A serif font, like, let's use Garamond. There we go. It looks more old-timey, right? It's got little things hanging off the M's and the T's and all of that. That's a serif font. We use those for the natural features, the ocean, rivers, lakes, stuff like that, right? So political things like country names and cities and all of that, give it that sans serif like I had initially, right? And then the other stuff, you can use that serif and find something that you like that works Doesn't have to be black, right? Pick a different, thank you, Del. Pick a different, color, experiment with this stuff. But you want it to be clear. And one thing you can do, as I scroll down here, one thing that's nice, you don't want to overuse it though, we have this halo function. And if kind of standard is just white, and I apply that, it puts, there's a glowing white around everything, right? So it actually stands out, so it doesn't get mixed up with all this other stuff. The white works for this because it's crossing different colors. What you can do, if you're labeling something, say out in the ocean, maybe I had these long lines that I had labeled, or whatever it might be. I could do that. I could do the halo color itself. I could match the background, right? Or something within the country itself. I'd match the background country color, so it just kind of blends in. It doesn't stand out quite as much. But that's the halo function. If you don't like it, you just say nope and go back to that. But that's how that works. All right. So that's the labeling stuff. And these right now, we're not going to get into annotation and all this advanced labeling nonsense because we're not ready for it. But it's a case where, it's dynamic labeling just by default. If I come in here, see, it redraws stuff. It changes the size depending on the scale. It repositions the stuff. So in some cases, like when I'm zoomed in, it's easier to see. When I get out, it all kind of overlaps. At this point, not a lot we can do. I just encourage you, find something that works in here. And so you're going to work through, and so your task for this week, I want you to just make a nice map, a reference map of South America. Label stuff, change the colors, give me something that is attractive. All right, mess around with these rivers and label them. All right, experiment with that. Put the country labels in as well as the cities. Feel free to change the query if you want to do that. But figure out exactly what you want, and then zoom in to the general area in here. And then when you're happy with what you got, well, it's time to actually make some kind of layout, right? This final product. So we're going to go to Insert, New Layout, and a few options here. Letter, it's just going to make it nice and easy and simple, something you can print down the road or whatever, but it's going to confine it to this smaller space, right? If you do like the C or D or E size sheet, it's going to be much bigger. The D size, that's a poster that we're dealing with. I'll just select that, okay? And I'll take, my map frame right here. So I need to put the actual map in there. I'm going to do this. Well, I kind of screw that up, but whatever. I can resize later. Just click and drag. As you can see, it doesn't actually look like what I started with because I've got such a massive sheet in here. Let me go to Properties and General, and I'm going to call this D, just so I can see it. Okay. New layout. I'm going to do letter. I'm going to do map frame. Do something like this. And see, that looks close. And even then, it's not, exactly the same. It's positioning it close to, what I had, but it's working with the sheet itself. Right? So this is huge, got a lot of space. This is smaller. Right? And you can see also, I've got some options. In fact, wait, what is it? I'm terrible at this. The layout thing, so different from the old ones that here it is. I want activate, right? Yes. If I hit activate, let's go back. Let me close. Yes, close, activate to show you. So it was in layout is what I saw earlier. Yeah, this should be. I just want to make sure I'm not, confusing you more than I'm obviously already confused. So here's what we want to do. from this layout ribbon, we hit activate. Okay, activates this. Now I can actually zoom in. I'm just rolling a little wheel on my mouse, and I can go in and I can do stuff like I did before, and I can get it just right. Okay, exactly where I want it. All right, and I can make sure, yeah, that looks good. I like how the labels look, all this stuff, and I'm happy with this stuff. And then I can go, here, close activation map. Same thing if I needed to do it here. Activate that sucker, and then we go do my little thing, and I get in. And what you'll notice with this one is that because it's 10-point font, it's going to be teeny tiny here. I could actually use bigger fonts. It's going to be a different process when it comes to labeling and all that stuff. So depending on the size sheet you pick, whether it's the D size, or in this case, the letter size, that's going to determine whether or not your fonts and stuff you chose were actually good, right? Or the proper way to go. So think about that when you're picking that actual page size. I'll just let you experiment this time and play around. We'll be a little more deliberate in the future. But then you can get this set, have it how you want it, and then in here, feel free to add some of these different elements that we have. Scale bar, north arrow, legend, that kind of stuff. Play around with it. See what you like. I'll warn you, though, that with this stuff, it's, north arrow. We'll talk about that. In this case, yes, you can use a north arrow. It's not totally necessary, but you can use it. And I'll get into why that is down the road. I've been going long on all this stuff. This is a lesson for another day. So you can use the north arrow. Okay? Feel free. Pick any one of these you want, except this first one, because everybody picks this first one, and they all look the same. But you can scroll down, find something you like. These topographic aviation charting stuff, stay away from them. I may explain that in here, may not, but it's not necessary for what we're doing. I'll leave it at that. But you can pick, we've got these kind of old-timey things. I can slap that down there. We can do that stuff. But I'll say it kind of depends on, some of this stuff and how we've got it set up. Let's do, I want not rectangle text. I want just the rectangle. What I always encourage my students to do is before you start adding in this stuff, give yourself some kind of box in here, right? That you can put all of this stuff in. And the properties, you should be able to get in symbol right here. Right now it's a see-through thing, but you can make it whatever. You can just have it be white. You can have a totally different color. We'll just, do that. That's hideous. Don't do that. But you could. Okay, and then in here, put, your north arrow, your scale bar, your legend. Like, keep it all in this little box. That way it's all in one spot. It's easy to see. It doesn't, blend into or blur with any of these other lines. I put it out in the ocean in a spot where, there's nothing of interest to me for this specific map. So it's out of the way, but it's easy to reference. And even a title, most maps should have a solid title on there. And I can just do this straight text right there. I can throw it here. And I can, in this box, I can just put South America. And of course, it's going to be small. It's home at 10-point font. I ain't doing that. And pick something that, try to keep this stuff all together. You want to go for simple, same font families or something that at least looks similar. I'll just, for now, I'll just do that. And I'll try, 16. And I'll hit apply. Maybe I want to go bigger or whatever. But you put that in there. Put in, let's just go back to this north arrow. I do that guy. I keep that in there. I keep all of this stuff in here so it looks nice. Okay? For now, again, as I've been saying, just play around, have fun with this stuff, experiment. Oh, and oh, son of a gun. First off, I'm going to hit save. But I see something, I just noticed, well, this is white in the background, right? That's because if I go here, we've got that gray, still in South America. But if I go, let's see, is it this one? Oh, that's this. I know. Sorry, I'm used to the old one. Let's go layout. Here we go, general. I should have probably checked this before. Well, son of a gun. I'll figure this out. Now I'm all pissed off with this. What if I go, yeah, that's going to be that same thing, right? Oh, wait, here we go. Oh, here we go, yes. Oh, perfect. Now I don't need to send you an announcement. All right. What the hell did I do? I just right-clicked in here, went to properties. This paintbrush guy, if I do this, let's just, yeah, there we go. Okay, so yeah, that's how it brings it back in. You know, heaven forbid we bring this back in. So there, hopefully that made sense. Again, you just show that. Let me close that. So all I did, just without this thing being activated, right click, properties, the paintbrush guy here, background, that's where I selected it to get back to that. Always an adventure. I'm trying to remember how to do this from different versions and all that, but there you go. So this is effectively what I want you to do, only yours is not going to look like crap. You follow? That's the goal here. So take your time, label stuff, symbolize it, make it attractive. Give me some of these elements here. Put a title, put whatever you want in here. I'll leave it to you. But also, just to be safe, go ahead, put your name, in the class in here, and just some information, so I know whose this is. I mean, yes, you're going to upload it to your own Canvas, entity or whatever, but it's just kind of nice to have that on here. Typically, we don't do that. When you're making maps, when you're actually doing this stuff professionally, you don't put your map on. You don't sign your work for whatever reason. So don't do that outside of the classroom. But for this, to make it nice, just again, you can do straight text, put it in here, put your name, and you're good. And once you're done with all this and you're totally happy, go to Share, Export Layout. Okay, PDF is good. Make sure you save it in the right spot. Don't worry about any of this other resolution and this stuff. It'll be fine. Okay, it's good to have embed fonts checked just to be safe, but it should automatically be checked. Export that, okay, and save it in this, where am I saving it thing, as I think I mentioned before. See, this is from that opening ArcGIS one. I don't want that. Go back into projects, right? Go, whoops, it's up at the top, South America. Save it in here. Don't even just call it layout. Call it something that's meaningful, right? Like South America final. All right, go from there, hit save. And then in here, pull, excuse me, and where I came from, good thing we're remote right now. So in here, go down to South America, and is it still thinking? Did I not save that? Now I'm paranoid. Am I not seeing it? Come on, baby, where are you at? Let's go back here. Oh, I didn't actually hit export. That's what it is. Hit export. I just told it where to save. I didn't finish it. There we go. Export completed. Now I'm in here. There it is. And I double click on that just to check it. Said I double click on that. Now it's thinking. Okay, well, it should open. It's doing a lot of work here. There we go. And so it looks exactly like, I had it in there, but it's saved as a PDF. This is what you're going to upload to Canvas. This is what I'm going to be grading. All right. So again, this is what I'm grading. So don't turn in some unfinished, horrendous thing like this. Take your time. Give me something that you're proud of. All right? Sound good? You guys got this. You are going to make your first maps, and they are going to be gorgeous. So happy mapping. Let me know if you have any issues here as you're working through. Send me an email. Also, communicate with each other. If you know other people in the class, you can work together. I think you also have the opportunity to have some kind of discussion thing pop up. I could also set something up if you guys can't do it. But just so you can kind of reach out to each other and have some kind of working group, even virtually. Have people you can bounce ideas off of and kind of work together. All right, geographers. Happy mapping. Enjoy. I'll talk to you later.